This is the third time that I've been to that taco truck, and the way that I got there, it was, how do I say this? There was a succession of events that occurred um, the same way each time. Okay, let me explain. So I've been to this taco truck 3 times already. The very first time I went to the taco truck, I left home. I drove to my favorite taco truck's location, but they weren't there. So I drove to another location where I knew another taco truck was set up. All right. So those are the events. That was the succession of events. Those were the successive events. Okay. I left home, drove to my favorite taco stand, my taco truck. It wasn't there. Drove to the next one. Those are the events. I've done that 3 times, right? 3 different days. I can't tell you how many days lapsed in between. I don't go to the taco truck every day, so it wasn't like Groundhog Day 3 days. But this is my third time going to that same taco truck because my favorite taco truck wasn't open. Okay. Now, on the first day that I went to the taco truck, the new taco truck, or new to me, the first day that I went there, the first time, all right, as I mentioned, those successive events took place. And then I pulled up to the parking lot. I parked my car, jumped out, stood in line, and as soon as I stood in line, there were 2 Latinas, older Latina and maybe perhaps an abuela, and then someone's esposa, a grandmother and maybe a wife, or maybe not a grandmother, but a mother-in-law. I have to brush up on my Spanish to figure out what that word is. But anyhow, you can tell me in the comment section. On the very first time, the very first day I ever went to this taco truck, I parked my car, got out, and stood in line. Those 2 women turned around as soon as I stood in line. As soon as I stood in line. As soon as I approached that line, they turned around and looked in my direction because I was standing behind them. And they started saying 109, 109, 109. Okay? Those are my numbers. So I thought, hey, I'm famous. They've been watching my videos and stuff. I quickly went to, this ego mode. But it was unwarranted because, no, they weren't calling out my YouTube channel. They were just telling me that order number 109 was ready. And I thought, wow, how serendipitous of me to arrive at that location and for them to call out 109 for the very first time I had ever gone there. I thought that was highly peculiar. And I also thought it was very cool. And I made a YouTube video about that and I posted that. So there I had my 109 experience at that location. And that was pretty interesting. Now, the second time I went to this taco truck, nothing eventful happened. I got my food. I chatted, a little chit chat with the customers while we waited, and then I got out of there. Today, something peculiar happened. Those same successive events. I left home, went to my favorite taco truck. I have to remember their schedule so that I don't repeat this error again. They weren't there, and so I drove to this new taco truck, or the taco truck that's new to me, and this was my third time. So this time I got out, and I stood in line, but no one turned around and said 109, 109. There was nothing about 109 this time. Okay, but here's something that is interesting that happened. As I stood in line, and then I placed my order. And then I just waited like all the other customers. It wasn't as crowded as it was the last time. I noticed this. And, I just, I picked up the salsas. I poured them into the bags and whatnot. And some onions and cilantro combination. I did all of these things, right? So finally, I'm standing off to the side, waiting for my food. Waiting for my number to be called. And I'm number 67. I was number 67 today. As I'm standing there, a woman approaches me. And something that I noticed while I was there is that as I was gathering my salsa, I'm going back before she approached me. Something that I noticed, before she approached me, as I moved around outside, I would go to pick up the salsa, pick up my little condiments to add to my burrito. As I moved, around, people were very conscious so as to move away. Everyone wanted to give everyone was practicing social distancing, so to speak. And there were points at which I felt as if their attempt to social distance was like unnecessary. It was too much of a, hey, I've got to stand away from this person or that person. I need to get my space. You would move in a certain area and then they would just, without a beat, they would just move away. And it was just, for me, I didn't see it as simply social distancing. This was like, don't get near me. This was like, I don't trust you. This is like, I have to watch my back. Los Angeles is a dangerous, area. Those are the types of vibes that I was getting. I wasn't getting, social distancing at all. I was getting more or less stay away from me. Yeah, but all right, maybe I was confusing social distancing for, tension, animosity, what have you. But anyhow, this is what I noticed among the people who were there. And so while I stood there waiting for my food, this woman approached me. Now, mind you, this was completely different behavior from all of the other behaviors that I had just witnessed. Everyone was social distancing, standing apart and moving around and not trying to stand near people. Unless they were getting their salsa. Then they would stand near each other, get their salsa, and then they would separate rather quickly. But as I was standing there alone, this woman approached me and she started talking to me. And I turned to look, and when I immediately looked at her, I didn't understand. I couldn't figure out where she was from. I thought she was a Latina. I thought she was someone's grandmother, and I thought that she was she looked like she was Catholic, the way that she was wrapped up and everything, and she had her mask on, and she stood close to me to talk to me, and I was a little put off, like, hey, what are you doing, lady? And so as we're talking, she asked me, or she said something, and I think my response was kind of rude. It was kind of like, hey, what are you doing? Like, what? And then I thought about it, and I looked at her more closely, and I examined her, and I thought, okay, I don't think she's Latina. I don't think she's Catholic. So I implored her to talk to me. I'm like, yes, well, what's going on? What do you need? Are you going to order? Oh, please go ahead. I'm just waiting in line, whatever I said. And so she started asking me questions about the menu and asking me what I was ordering and whatnot. And I just told her a chicken burrito, and so, or I didn't even say chicken burrito. I just said a burrito, and she said, chicken? Like, she asked me, you getting the chicken? I said, yeah, and I smiled. I'm like, yeah, I'm getting the chicken burrito. So she said, oh, I thought you were Ethiopian. And I looked at her, and I'm like, after studying her, it kind of dawned on me, oh, wait a minute, I think she's Ethiopian. So I said to her, are you Ethiopian? And she said, yes. And I said, oh, salamnish. And then it was more comfortable after that. I mean, that's the only Ethiopian in salamnish or salam, tadias, amesegenalo, konjo, nikirta. These are a few of the phrases that I know how to say. But I spoke to her, and it was a little bit more comfortable, a more comfortable communication. I wasn't, trying to run away from her or what have you, but it was more comfortable. It was a familial thing. Like, hey, okay, all right, I'm good. So she said she was Ethiopian, and I said, are you from Addis? She said, yes. That's when I reached in and grabbed my No. She told me, she said, I thought you were Ethiopian. And I said, no. She said, where are you from? I said, I'm from right here, Los Angeles. And then I pulled out my Oxamite cross to show her, hey, so it's all good. And there it was. And I showed her, and then she said, oh, yes, okay. She said, but you're not Ethiopian? I said, no, I'm from Los Angeles. So this is the Oxamite. This is from the city of Oxum, the cross, right? So like I said, it was very familial, very, very warm. And she looked at my shirt. She said, oh, you like Bob Marley? And I was just like, yeah, whatever, yeah, Bob Marley, Bob Marley's famous worldwide, I mean, this is what I'm thinking later, but I just said to her, yeah, and then that was it. And she impressed me with this idea that she thought that I was Ethiopian, Now, it's not the first time that I've had, I've gotten this reaction before. My wife and I get this reaction. But that's what happened at that taco truck. That happened, and then that led me to think about, no, that didn't lead me to think. There's something else that happened. After I got my food, and I said, goodbye to her, she bid me, a good night or what have you, and walked away. I got my food and I went home. Within, a few minutes of getting home and sitting down to eat my meal, I went to Facebook, and the first post I read was a post from Pedro. All right. So Pedro, if you're watching this, man, bless up, So I saw your post, Pedro, and I was like, and it's the 60 minutes interview with Bob Marley. And I'm like, oh, snap. That's what's up. I'm like, dang, I'm rocking the Bob Marley shirt today. I had my little interaction with the Ethiopian woman, and she was like, I thought you were Ethiopian. And so I started watching the that 60-minute interview with Bob Marley. I haven't finished it yet. I was just inspired to talk, so that's what I'm doing right now. I'm recording myself, recording this story. And so within a minute of watching that 60-minute interview, I started to hear some things that really excited me, and impacted me. Some things that I heard were wrong. Don't call the locks dreadlocks. There's nothing dreadful about them. I think Bob Marley said that. Then the commentator misspoke. He said something to the effect that, Emperor, His Imperial Majesty, Haile Selassie, is his name. What did they say? They call him Rastafari. Yeah. Within the first few minutes, the commentator, the journalist, said something to the effect. They call. The Rastas pray to Rastafari, but his name, he said something, but he is actually Haile Selassie. However he worded it, when I heard it, I was like, no, that's wrong, because Rastafari is Emperor Haile Selassie's actual name. Raz is his title. Tafari was his name. Tafari Makonnen was his birth name, right? And so when he said they call him Rastafari, but he is, Haile Selassie, it was like, no. Haile Selassie is the name given to him upon coronation, becoming the emperor, becoming the king, emperor. And so, but what really got me is the idea that during the 1960s, the Rastafarian movement grew out of an admiration and an appreciation for a black leader. And having seen a black man, having seen the expression of a black man, a successful black man at the height of the world stage, was impressive, especially to the Jamaicans who thereafter created Rastafarianism. And so I was inspired to talk about my experience because it goes back to 109. My story about 109, although it's a personal testimony about what happened to me when these encounters, when I saw these numbers, it's also about my interpretation, and my interpretation and the conclusion that I draw is related to Nipsey Hussle. Ermias Askedom, not Nipsey Hussle. Ermias Askedom. And then it also goes back to what William Faulkner said. The past isn't dead. It's not even the past. William Faulkner said this. So this whole story about 109 is richly, it's such a rich story because it's a part of my awakening and coming into knowledge of self and a learning. It's about my process of discovering about the people from which Nipsey descends, and how those people are linked to biblical figures. And so lastly, these whole ideas about whether these people actually lived and whether these events actually took place, and then these allegories that the Bible is filled with, it's kind of like, don't believe the hype. Like, look, the Bible is based upon real lives. Excuse me. It's those extraordinary tales that are metaphors. And I'll give you an example. We're related to Ermias Askedom. He literally turned water into wine, just like Jesus. This is a metaphor. Who else took regular sweatshirts, socks, t-shirts, regular things, okay, that you could buy for $5-10, what have you, cheaply. His company still sells sweatshirts, socks, t-shirts, you name it. And they're selling them for $50 or more in many cases. But they're just $5, $10 items made very cheaply. And they're very plentiful. Water in Ethiopia is a renewable source of energy when it comes to hydroelectronics, right? Hydro power. I'm thinking of the great Ethiopian Renaissance dam, GERD. Water's there. It's always going to be there for the most part. But Jesus turned that water into wine, something that is unique, special, and delightful, right? Unique. So you take the water and you turn it into wine. You take those socks, those t-shirts, and those sweatshirts that are just regular clothes, but you put your name on it, you put your logo on it, you put those tags on it, and now it is something very special, unique, and wildly more valuable. So he turned it from water into wine. So that's the metaphor of the day, and I just wanted to share that after visiting the local taco truck and speaking with the local Ethiopian woman who mistook me for an Ethiopian. But she was not wrong. You see, in my heart of hearts, and factually, all humanity comes from Ethiopia. And so we should not be confused with these geopolitical lines. Yes, the politics of the day of today say that, you know, this area is Ethiopia, that area is Eritrea, that area is Somalia, that this area is the United States of America. And I am so much more richer a person knowing the connection between us, rather than seeing these imaginary lines as dividers and separators. Because I could have looked at her and said, no, don't talk to me, don't get next to me, don't get near me, you stay over there, no, I'm not Ethiopian, and shut that conversation down. But that's not what happened, and I'm better for it, having had that interaction with that beautiful Ethiopian woman. Okay, y'all, that's my story. Peace and blessings. I'm going back to watching that documentary that Pedro suggested, recommended on Facebook. Peace and blessings. It's pretty long. I ain't a jig yet.
Window seat surfing on the wing. As an adolescent, I dreamed of big things. Climbed to the top of the mountain to see the scene. Petty wap don't want me to have anything. I'm the captain, no jet lag. Boeing jet swag. Floating to the sunset, keep the drinks coming back. She summoned me, gave me turbulence on the sink. Pretty flight attendant boarding pass, I'm a buddy. Stunting first class, vegan meal yummy. Right in the